Hello, so today we are at Rapid City Regional Airport in the Beechcraft Bonanza V35, the V-tail variant of the Bonanza, you can see here. And we're going to go for a little fly down to Mount Rushmore and onto the Crazy Horse Monument, and then for some touch and goes. So let's go and have a little look at our flight plan on a little nav map. So you can see we are here at Rapid City Regional. Going to fly in towards the Vortec station at Rapid City, which is on, let's hover over that again, so the frequency is 112.30, so we can fly into it, and then it's basically on our departure direction. We'll be taking off runway 14 from Rapid City, so then we'll fly out of there on the 246 degree radial towards Mount Rushmore, and then there's Mount Rushmore is down there, and then on to Crazy Horse. Then we'll head south to Custer County, do a touch and go, head east to Custer State Park, do another touch and go, and fly down to our eventual destination at Hot Springs Municipal near Maverick Junction. Okay, so it's a pretty straightforward flight plan. But the only handicap here is going to be me, because I have not flown this aircraft since it came out. So let's go and jump inside and have a look. It's really wonderfully modelled, isn't it? Just looking around inside. So we have a fuel shut-off valve down there, which is good to see. It's pointing at the left tank. We have to remember that. We're not going to be flying very far though. So let's remove the yoke so we can have a look around. We've got levers here, so we've got the propeller push for high RPM, it's already pushed, that's good. Throttle push, obviously that's connected to axes on my controllers. Cowl flaps, let's have a look outside before. So that's here. So I presume we push them to close them. Yes, we do. So let's pull them back out, so we'll have those open to start the engine. Okay, so let's figure this thing out. So obviously there's the ignition. So batteries on, and things are coming alive. Alternators on. Turn the pitot heat on. We'll turn the beacon light on before we start the engine. We'll put the mixture to fully rich. We'll crack the throttle open a little bit. We'll make sure we've got the parking brake on. Oh, is the parking brakes working? Yes, it is. And let's go and start the engine, shall we? So we'll turn the key. And that sounds good. Let's just see what the volume levels are like, so you can hear me over the top of the engine. And yeah, you can't really hear me very well, can you, over it? So let's just make sure you can. So I'll maybe turn that down a little bit. Yeah. Okay. That will do. I'm always aware of it's difficult to judge how loud an aircraft's going to be. Okay, so just looking around, we've got the button up here that switches us for the CDI, which is fine. So engine is ticking over, alternators on, pitot heat's on. We'll pretend the nav light's on now. Below 10,000 feet, if we were a commercial aircraft, we'd have the landing lights on as well. We'll stick them on anyway. We don't need the taxi lights, it's broad daylight, it's sunshine. Okay, so we want the avionics on. The avionics master switch is over here in this aircraft, which has also powered up the instrument stack over here. We're just going to wait for the GPS to come up to speed. We'll put in the basic waypoints in of the airfields. Obviously we'll be deviating from it to go and look at Mount Rushmore and Crazy Horse, but we'll put the basics of the flight plan in. So we're just waiting for the GPS to fire up, which is good. Okay, so enter, wait for it to pick up the satellites. This aircraft's quite cool, look, you can open the doors on it, it affects the sound that we're hearing. I think the The various panels open and close as you'd imagine they should. And we've picked up GPS, perfect. Okay, so we go to the flight plan page, we push the knob in on the GNS 530, roll the inner knob. So we want KRAP for Rapid City Regional. So we'll click on the keyboard, KRAP, enter, and the next one is going to be the VOR, which is RAP. It's hidden behind that. Yeah, RAP is the VOR. So we'll click on the keyboard again, type RAP, Rapid City, enter, and again, and we go for Custer County, KCUT, KCUT, Custer County, South Dakota, perfect. And the next one, Custer State Park, 3V, I think that's 3V0. We'll soon find out, won't we? 3V0, Custer County State Park, enter. And the final one is Hot Springs Municipal, KHSR. So, click on the keyboard, KHSR, Hot Springs Municipal, perfect. Okay, so that's our flight plan done, so we can push, except I've now gone and pressed that and I didn't mean to. Can I clear out of here? Yes, I can. Okay, so we're not going to worry too much about that. We are going to put this onto the first page though, so we see an aircraft oriented display within there. Okay, so our cruising altitude, if we're going to have one today, it's going to be about 8,000 feet to clear the hills. So you can see if I've just pressed B, which calibrated the altimeter, we're at about 3,200 feet above sea level. So we're going to be climbing into about 5,000 or 6,000 feet above ground level, or at least in relation to this departure airfield. But we're not going to worry too much about that. So it has got an altimeter connected to the autopilot, so you can do this. I'm not sure how well it works, we'll find out along the way. So we should be able to say go to 8,000 for example, and we should be able to engage vertical speed mode, but this might not work until we get into the air. Usually you pull this, once it's in operation with the autopilot this should light up, but I don't know how well modelled it's going to be. So you'd say I want to climb for example at 1,000 feet a minute, and you would engage vertical speed mode, but that might not work until the autopilot's on, so we'll see. Okay, parking brake off, and we're taxiing. So we're not going to need all of the runway, so I'm inclined actually to pull out straight onto the runway if I can. Let's have a look at where we are in relation to the rest of the airfield. Yeah, so I would turn left here. Oh yeah, we may as well use all of the runway. Oh, although look how long that runway is, 8,000 feet, there's no way we need all of it, so we'll go at the intersection. So rather than turn left and go to the end of the runway, we're going to cut in halfway along the runway. It's just a space to sit up and see over the nose. So let's test this button out while we're here, and we should see that change between VLOC and GPS, and it does, so we've switched it to GPS mode, but we actually want it in VLOC mode. There's nobody around, is there? We're the only people here. Okay, so I'm just going to put the parking brake back on for a moment while we talk about this. So we've pulled onto the runway. We're on runway 14, which is 144 degrees on as the compass goes. So let's go and get the HSI set up. So we want this spun around to 144 degrees for the heading bug. So 120, 130, 140, 144 degrees is about there. We'll do the same for the course. And we'll go and get that VOR tuned in straight away. So we're just tuning in the course we want, and remember the VOR was over here and it was 112.3 I believe, 112.30. So we'll look over here, we'll just scoot across so you get to see this clearly as I do it. So we push this knob in, and that switches the focus over to the radio frequencies, and we want 112.30, and then we transfer that to the active frequency, and you can see it's picked up the VOR wrap from the from its database. And if we were to point straight at it, the actual direction from us to the VOR is slightly to the left of the runway direction. So what we'll do once we take off is actually switch the autopilot over to nav mode, and it will chase that radial that we've tuned. We should get distance, yeah, we've got distance measuring equipment working straight away, look, because it's very flat around here. So it's about 5 miles away. Okay, off the parking brake. And let's go and get this show on the road, shall we? So I'll sit up. Flaps to takeoff position. And we wait for the aircraft to accelerate. And it doesn't accelerate. Whoa! What is going on with that? So it's come off the runway remarkably quickly, but it wanted to... It was almost like it had the wing and the wind under one of its wings. I'm not used to flying such a light aeroplane anymore. Perhaps it would help if we sat down in the seat so we didn't get the exaggerated sense of movement. Okay, so if I go and engage the autopilot, which is the far right button on this system. Before we do that, let's just have a little circuit of the airfield that we've just left. I never do this, I ought to do it more, because at least then we get to get some bearings of where we are and where we're going. And the scenery invariably looks wonderfully in Flight Simulator. It looks wonderful, I mean, not wonderfully. So it's a shame not to actually appreciate it a little more. So this is Rapid City Regional Airfield. Let's go and squeeze over next to the glass so we get to actually see it properly. It's a fair bit of turbulence, isn't there? Look at that view out across the hills in the distance with the sun on them. It's got quite a nice terminal building here, hasn't it? Rapid City. Okay, let's get this aircraft sorted out, shall we? So this is a Carenado aircraft, so we can't actually damage the engine as such. We could run it flat out all day long and it won't hurt it. So what we're going to do is just straighten ourselves up on the track towards the VOR. We're 4 miles away from it. Just turning towards the horizontal situation indicator, and now I'm going to go and engage the autopilot. and we'll go for altitude hold mode for the moment, and we will go for nav mode. So it's going to chase, based on it being in VLOC mode, which is also related up here. Nav mode is armed. It's chasing the VOR frequency and the radial we have chosen. So we're only 2 miles away, so we're remarkably close to it. So what we ought to be doing really is turning the course now to 246 degrees. So we'll go to heading mode instead, and we're going to, because we're about to fly over the top of the VOR, so we're going to change this to 246, which is about there. We'll change the heading as well. Oops. So you can see we're almost on top of the VOR, 0.3 miles away from it. We're off to the left now of the 246 degree radial, which is exactly right. Look, we're off to the left of it. And the white arrow on the HSI is pointing behind us, so it means that we are flying away from the VOR station now. So you'll see this distance increasing on the distance measuring equipment. Okay. So let's go and engage this. So let's just make sure. Whoa, look at that. How wrong can that go? So there's a bug in there. That's since sim update 11. It wanted to get us to 99,000 feet altitude. Good luck with that. And interesting. So we want to go to about 7,500 actually. And we push or pull this again, and it puts us into vertical speed, and then we'll engage that. It's going that, but it's interesting. It's zeroed it at the point we engaged it, and then we have to select it again. So hopefully it should take us up to 7,500 feet and then level us out. We'll keep an eye on it. Okay, if we look at a message over here, it says approaching VNAV profile. We don't need to worry about that at all. So we are now en route to Mount Rushmore. So let's go and press the nav button on the autopilot. So you can see at the moment we're flying away from the VOR, but we are not on the 246 degree radial. We are off to the left of it. So if we press nav, the aeroplane should track back across to get onto that radial. So it should level up. Is it going to understand doing it? Yeah, it's going to overshoot though, isn't it? It's done it a bit heavy-handed. Although we're 6 miles away now though, so the needle's not going to move that quickly. So it's kind of getting it right. It's not doing a super bad job, but not a great job either. So we'll go back to heading mode. We can just use this as a reference rather than let the aeroplane try to follow it. Okay, what direction is the wind? So we've got a headwind of 19 knots. So our first waypoint is Mount Rushmore. So when we get a bit closer, we will switch off the autopilot and have a look around outside the aircraft. Oh look, the keyboard keys are not working to move my view around. That's interesting. I wonder if... Nope. Okay, so we can't move around inside the cockpit today. I'm normally you can use the cursor keys. I wonder if it's scroll lock is causing it now. How odd. Let's go and have a look outside anyway. It's a nice looking little aeroplane. Oh, we haven't closed the cowl flaps yet. Let's go and do that. So that was here. So we'll close the cowl flaps. We'll come off those throttles a bit. We're going to slow down anyway when we get closer to Mount Rushmore. We're only doing 110 knots, although we're still climbing. So we're coming up to 8,000. Now, has that remembered anything about... Yeah, it's gone straight through 7.5, look. So this is broken. Even though we could play games all day long with arming this, it's not going to behave itself. So it's going to do altitude hold, basically. And nothing else that we want it to. Okay. What if we try some of these key combinations out? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, F, and suddenly it works. How strange is that? We can now move around inside the cockpit. The reason I wanted to was so we get a good look at Mount Rushmore as we approach. So you can see it's down here, look. So we are a little bit high, but we'll take care of that by hand. So we'll fly over at altitude and circle Mount Rushmore, and then we'll descend down carefully, having a good look at it before we set off and go over to Crazy Horse. Luckily it doesn't take long to get there. Let's go and open these engines up a bit more. What settings has this got to do with the engine? Can we get any more speed out of it? We've got the rich mixture, although saying that, we're at 8,000 feet, that would be half the reason. So if we pull the mixture back to 50%, yeah, we're picking up speed now. So given the altitude we're flying at, we had the mixture too rich, so the engine was not burning fuel efficiently. We are now picking up speed quite considerably, which is great. Okay, we're getting there. We will do a left turning circle around Mount Rushmore. Purely because I'm sitting on the left side of the aircraft and we'll get a nicer view out of this window than we would out of the opposite side. So let's come off the autopilot. Pull the throttle back. So pull the throttle back to 50% now, and we're just going to gently descend down towards Mount Rushmore. So I think we're approaching, I think this is the main viewing platform to see straight up towards it. So as we get closer, obviously it will render in more detail. Obviously you can see as well we are quite away from our flight plan, but that's not a major problem. Okay, you can just see one of the faces there. We're obviously going to circle round behind it though, and then come round, and then you'll get a decent view of it when we come around the other side. Just pulling the engine back so we don't accelerate too hard. So as we loop around, you'll get a decent view of it. So, well, that's the plan. Let's go and push ourselves against the glass over here. Looks quite small from an aeroplane travelling at speed, doesn't it? You wouldn't imagine just how big it is. So we'll try and come in a bit closer on the next pass. I'm going to drop the flaps. And what we'll do now is fly the reverse and then fly straight over the top to get a really close look. This would probably get us arrested if we tried to do this in the real world. I imagine there's a no-fly zone around it. There we go, and we roll away. Okay, so next destination is going to be the Crazy Horse Memorial. So let's go and see which direction. I think we're almost going the right direction already. So we want to go 244 degrees. So yeah, we're pretty much going the right direction. It's just over the top of this hill. So we continue climbing. It's a lot of turbulence. If we sit up, we can see over the nose. Push ourselves into the center of the aircraft. Let's have a look at the map. So it's quite it's a little way over. It's not as short a journey between the two as I imagined. Oh, and the simulator has frozen. Is it going to wake back up? Is the big question. This has been happening on every flight recently. And it's nothing to do with add-ons, because I've removed everything except this aircraft. Yeah, there we go, it's just come back, look. It's bizarre, isn't it? And the clunk you heard was all of the USB devices resetting themselves. Okay, so if we look in terms of the features here, there's a huge hill just before we get to Crazy Horse, so that'll be this one. So do we fly over it or around it? I guess if we fly to the left of it and then circle round, we should see Crazy Horse quite easily, shouldn't we? And we get to admire some of this scenery. I mean, look at this. It's absolute madness, isn't it? It's rendered so well. It's quite a bit of turbulence though, because remember there were like 20 knot winds when we took off. So as that wind comes barrelling over the hills, it's going to throw us around. Let's come off the throttle. And we can see Crazy Horse over there. Flying straight towards it. If I fly down the left or the right side, sorry, you get to see it down as it passes along the left side of the aircraft. The turbulence is not helping our cause, is it? So let's just circle. I wonder if they'll ever finish it. Let's look from the other side. So if we come rolling in. Oh, we're not going to see it from here. We'll have to do it from outside. Getting a little bit slow there. One more pass and then we'll go out and do our touch and goes at the remaining airfields. Get some speed this time and fly straight over the top of it. Or straight past it and look down. Okay, let's head towards the next airfield, KCUT, Custer. So we'll do all this manually from now on, because then we get to see some of this amazing scenery. Turbulence is not fun. Okay, so based on the wind, we're drawing some really squiggly lines, aren't we, on the map? Based on the wind, 24 knots, so we're going for runway 26, funnily enough. But we'll circle the airfield to get our bearings when we get there, so we'll overfly, turn left and do the left circuit into runway 26. Does that make sense? You can see us being pushed sideways. It's quite dramatic. Where is the runway? Is this it down here? Pretty much on course. Just want to get a good sight of it before I start manoeuvring. Or is this it here? I think this might be it here. Though looking at the GPS, it's off to our left. Hiding from us in the trees somewhere. There it is. So we will turn left and then fly back in onto this runway. It's quite a long runway, isn't it? So gear down. Flaps down. So remember, we're just doing a touch and go, not a full stop. Full throttle. If I look a bit out of practice, it's because I haven't landed this plane in about 6 months. So gear up. Flaps up. It's amazing scenery around here, isn't it? I always say that though. I always end up saying that somewhere along the flight. Okay, on to the next journey. The next direction, I should say. Okay, just coming up towards 7,000 feet, and we are en route across the map to Custer State Park, which is over here somewhere. So let's go and move the heading bug around so we know which way we're going. Plane is trying to roll right while I'm busy doing this. It's not really helping us a great deal. There we go. So if we wanted to, we could go and engage the autopilot, go to heading mode and put it in altitude hold mode, which I think is that one. Oh, it was on altitude hold already. And the plane will just maintain the heading that we've given it. We probably want a few more degrees to the left, to be honest. Okay, so we're en route to Custer State Park, and we'll have a look at it and fly around. We're doing about 150 knots, which is not bad going at all. Shall we look from outside? It's on a bit of a roller coaster ride with all this turbulence, isn't it? Okay, not far to go. So we can see the airport there. So again, we're going to need to consider the wind. And it's going to be a crosswind this time, and a nasty one. So we're going to go for runway 33. It's probably on the limit of the airframe, but if we hover the mouse over the airfield, yeah, there's 20 knot gusting. It's 9 knots gusting 20 at ground level from the west, 260 degrees. So you can see the airfield down here. So let's come off the autopilot. Let's start turning away so we can roll back in. We'll come in across these wonderful hills. If you get an engine failure around here, you don't get much choice over where to land, do you? It's all pretty rugged. So we'll come barreling along here for our touch and go. Looks like quite a narrow runway as well. Just got a couple of parking spots at the far end. Cut the engine back. Need to lose some speed before I can put the undercarriage down, really. though making the turn towards the runway will lose us some speed, it has to be said. So if we were to turn right and then left, oh, look at that scenery out there. Yeah, that is bleeding the speed off all the time. So undercarriage down. Flaps to 50%. We're descending as we go. There's the runway. It's on a bit of a plateau. If we're concerned about speed, we can always side slip on the way in. So you can see the speed is scrubbing off pretty quickly. So to side slip, I'm just holding full left rudder and a bit of right aileron. So full left rudder, a little bit of right aileron. I'm not sure if I said that correctly the first time. So I've just released it, so now we're rolling in. So pull the throttle back. I'm not going to get too slow because of that crosswind. I think we got away with that. I think we just happened to come along the runway when there wasn't too much wind. Remember, it's gusting 20, that doesn't mean it's at 20 knots all the time. So yeah, we pretty much got away with it. Okay, so final leg of the journey is to double back on ourselves, and we've got 20 miles down to Hot Springs Municipal. So we'll do the right turn. We'll switch the CDI over to GPS, and we'll get the aircraft to fly itself on the way back. So we'll get it in the ballpark and get it trimmed out, and then let it fly itself for the final leg until we get to the final airfield. Then we'll take over again. And we just get to admire the scenery along the way. Okay, so autopilot on, nav mode on, altitude hold mode on, and we let the aeroplane take over. That's some scenery, isn't it? Should have a look from outside. Pretty awesome stuff. We are being thrown around. That whistling wind is obviously coming off these hills and pushing us all over the place, which is why the aeroplane is squirreling around so much. We could prevent that by gaining some altitude. So if we at least know that vertical speed mode works, it's gone for 99,000 again. Look, it's completely broken. I wonder if they're going to fix all of these aircraft where the Sim Update 11 seems to have broken a lot of the altitude and vertical speed instruments. I'm just going to try something. Somebody told me the other day that Little Navmap itself causes trouble. So if I do this, that's still saying 99,000 feet. Will it go? And if I try and turn it up, it drops to 50,000 feet and maxes out there. It's a bit hopeless, isn't it? So the way it should work is you would be able to arm an altitude, which is not going to let me do, and then set the rate to get there. And it's taking no notice of the rate. Yeah, so it's completely broken. There's lots of other aircraft that have the same instrument that are broken in exactly the same way. So we'll just stick to altitude hold mode, which seems to work. Which was there. So although we can maintain a vertical speed, we can't fly to a target altitude. Let's have a look on the GPS. We have got 14 miles to go. If we increase range slightly, so we can see our destination appearing in the distance. If we reopen Little Navmap, we'll be able to have a look and figure out what runway we're going to use with the wind. So Hot Springs Municipal is going to be runway 19 by the look of it, but let's just check with the local weather down here in the valley. 260 degrees, 9 knots, gusting 20. So it's coming in from about here. So runway 19. It would be even better to use the grass runway on runway 24, but we'll go for 19. So we'll circle the airfield before we actually, go on to any finals. I wonder if this has got an airfield radio working. So if we go back out of here, we're flying into Hot Springs Municipal. Tune, no, it's only got traffic, it hasn't got a tower. That's a shame. Just wonder if we could get any advisement from the tower to join pattern, but there's no tower. Okay, we're nearly there. Nearly at the end of tonight's adventure. Let's come off the throttle a little bit. We're going absolutely flat out. Look, 160 knots. This scenery really is stunning, isn't it? I mean, look at that. Oh, he says that, and then the window starts reflecting on it. It's something else, isn't it? And I bet if we play with the time, it will look even more spectacular. So let's have a go with that, shall we? So we'll just wind the time forwards. Oh my word. It really is something else, isn't it? It's when you get the late afternoon sunshine. Okay, let's put it back on live time. I almost always fly with live time, live weather, because then you never know what you're going to get, and it's always a bit of a surprise, and it gives you something to do. So we can see the airfield down here. So, based on what we saw, we will overfly, do a left turn, come back, and fly into runway 19. Should be fairly straightforward. So I'm going to come off the autopilot, pull the throttle back so we can descend safely. We'll circle the airfield and then come back in from this end. Let's just scoot ourselves across the cabin so we get to see the surrounding area. This is interesting. They've got some rotary crops over here. I think this was invented in New Zealand, possibly, or Australia, where you have the engine on an arm that runs around in a circle for doing irrigation. You can see there's some more here, look where they've done it. So there's the airfield we're heading for. We're just going to loop back on ourselves to come in for runway 19. There is this grass strip though, isn't there? We could use it. I think it's nicer to use the proper paved runway there. How are we doing for speed? Okay, so we can gear down, flaps down. Yeah, the crosswind's not too bad at all. It's actually helping us enormously because we're coming in really slowly. It's obviously got the offset of the wind. You can see the windsock blowing away like crazy to the left side of the runway over there. And we're down. Flaps up, taxi in, avoid the forklift. I think we're going to stop right outside the terminal building, shall we? We'll double back here. This will do. Parking brake on, mixture cut off, so engine should stop. There we go. So avionics can come back off. Various lights can be switched off. Pitot heat can come off. Alternators off. Oops. And battery off. And we're good to go. So we can open the aircraft, let some air in. There we go. So that was the Bonanza V35 in Microsoft Flight Simulator with a flight around Mount Rushmore and Crazy Horse and a few of the nearby airfields. Hopefully you enjoyed that. As you could see, there were a few things broken in the aircraft, but nothing too serious. We were still able to get on with our flight. It's just, it would have been nice to have had altitude capture working on the autopilot, but you can't have everything, I guess. The simulator's are always under development and things are always being broken in the various aircraft. So I'll see you again soon anyway. Take care.